one of Srila Prabhupada's purports to illustrate a point. So we'll begin by understanding. Well, let me begin. One of Srila Prabhupada's purports to illustrate Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaudavani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, who spent the formative years of his preaching in Sri Radha Damodara temple and was guided by Sri Rupa Goswami and Sri Sanatana Goswami, whose samadhis were in front of him, to bring us Sri Damodara lila and all the Krishna consciousness that he brought us. So in this particular verse, that the word iti, idrik, in this way, or seeing, this is being witnessed, this is being seen in this way. So by such activities, idrik swa lila bir. So swa means his own, or swanam could be swa or swanam, the activities of his devotees, which means that Ananda Kunde Swagosham. Swagosham means his particular associates, the very particular associates that you find in Vrindavan. Swagosham, his village, his people, or it means all of his glorious activities all together. Nimanjantam, submerged everyone in Anandan Kunde, in transcendental bliss. So either everyone was submerged in transcendental bliss, or everyone was submerging Krishna in transcendental bliss. Both things were happening simultaneously. Krishna, when he enjoys his rasa with his devotees, we see that there are two things, rasa and tattva. So tattva means the truth about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this particular verse of the Bhagavatam deals with the truth. What is that truth? That he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But superior and more, well, not superior necessarily, but more intimately preferred by Krishna is his rasa. In tattva, Krishna is the supreme. In rasa, Radharani is supreme. In tattva, Krishna is the controller. And in rasa, Krishna is controlled. So the rasa, just like a child in the tattva with his parents, he is being disciplined, told, go to school, all the rules and regulations of youth, good behavior. But in rasa, in his dealings with his parents, is very intimate. Things that are not known are known within that circle. So within this circle, swagosham nimajantam, both Krishna and his Vrajbasi devotees are entering into pools of liquid rasa, or liquid bliss. Just wonderful. Srila Sanatana Goswami uses the word gabira, and we find that word many times in the Bhagavatam. It means very deep, very mysterious, or difficult to understand, or and very confidential pastimes. These are very confidential pastimes, and only those who have that admittance can understand. So what is that admittance? We'll deal with that in a few minutes. So what are those activities? This is what I wanted to read. from the Bhagavatam. Those wonderful activities. I'm going to read this. This is from the 11th chapter of the 10th canto, starting with verse 7. I'm only going to read the Sanskrit to verse number 9. This is this is the bliss. This is the Ananda Kunda, the pools or the lake or the ocean of transcendental bliss. Just like in the Goswam Astakam, Srinivasacharya says that they were dancing, they were playing and dancing in the waves of ecstasy. Just like people go to the ocean and they dance and they play in the waves. So in the same way, they were playing in the waves of pure bhakti. So again, this is 10, 11, 7, starting with 7. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. The gopis would say, if you dance, my dear Krishna, then I shall give you half a sweetmeat. By saying these words, or by clapping their hands, all the gopis encourage Krishna in different ways. At times, although he was the supremely powerful personality of Godhead, he would smile and dance according to their desire, as if he were a wooden doll in their hands, or like a puppet, like we control a puppet. Sometimes he would sing very loudly at their bidding, and in this way, Krishna came completely under the control of the gopis. Now here we're speaking about the elderly gopis, friends of Yashoda Mai. At this age, of course, Krishna was not involved in the younger gopis, although the younger gopis were very attracted, would come and see him as a small child or see him playing with the calves and the cows. But this is specifically speaking about the elderly gopis. They were having so much pleasure with Krishna. And as we know later on in the Bhagavatam, that Krishna actually married all of the younger gopis. And he married them all, so he actually became their husband in the Vastraharana lila, where Krishna steals the clothing of the gopis. And then at the same time when he expanded himself as the cowherd boys. So when he did that, all those cowherd boys got married, which was actually Krishna marrying all these gopis. And at the same time, Krishna became especially pleasing to all the senior or the elderly gopis. They weren't really so elderly, but they're not young girls. So they were mothers and their sons. Krishna took the form of their sons, and they developed a very special affection. They said, I've never had so much attraction to my son before. They were bewildered in their minds, but actually their son was Krishna. So he would just do whatever they wanted. It gave him so much pleasure to be controlled in this way by these wonderful Brajbasis. Sometimes Mother Yashoda and her gopi friends would tell Krishna, bring this article or bring that article. Sometimes they would order him to bring a wooden plank, wooden shoes, or wooden measuring pot. Each one of those is increasingly heavier. I remember we used to have that painting of Krishna with wooden shoes on his head, bringing them to Nanda Maharaj. And Krishna, when thus ordered by the mothers, would try to bring them. Sometimes, however, as if unable to raise these things, he would touch them and stand there. Just to invite the pleasure of his relatives, he would strike his body with his arms. He would just go like this to show that he had strength. But sometimes he actually would struggle to pick them up, because this is again rasa. In tattva, he supports unlimited universes without any effort. But in rasa, he has to struggle to pick up a pair of shoes. This is the bewildering pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He can, he can maintain unlimited universes, but he has to struggle to pick up some shoes that belong to Nanda Maharaj. So this is amazing. So now we'll read the 9th verse, and I will read the Sanskrit because it has a very important word. Darshayam stadvidam loka atmano britya vashyatam Rajasyo vahabai harsam Bhagavan balachashtitai. The translation: to the pure devotees throughout the world who could understand his activities, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, exhibited how much he can be subdued by his devotees, his servants. In this way, he increased the pleasure of the Brajbasis by his childhood activities. So here, this is what was referred. I'll read the purport in a couple of minutes. This is what was referred to in the previous chapter. In the previous verse number 2, Bhakti Badham. So this verse number 3 begins with iti. In this way, because of this Bhakti Badham, because of being controlled by the desires or by the presence or by the activities or by the words of his devotees, he was feeling the submission. So it means this illustrates, taking from the last verse, the Lord's dependence on his devotees. Or it can also refer to being bound, Damodara, being bound by the love of his devotees, or being bound by a rope. And by being bound by a rope, we'll see later on in the 11th chapter, Nanda Maharaj, after he pulls down the Yamal Arjun trees, then Nanda Maharaj unties him. And he's wondering, how could Yashoda Mai, they had so much love for Krishna, how could she possibly tie up Krishna? So this was, Nanda Maharaj was bewildered by this. He untied Krishna, but he could understand that Krishna can be pretty difficult to deal with, pretty mischievous. So then it refers to his being bound by a rope by this Damodara lila. And so this is very wonderful. It's very wonderful how this expands. So going back to what I was reading, I will read the purport to that. So again, the verse, to the pure devotees throughout the world. Now this is interesting. It says, Darshaya Tadvidam. Persons who can understand Krishna's activities. He gives this darshan to people. And which ones? Just the Brajbasis? No. Loke. Throughout the whole world. He himself, he reveals himself to Britya Vashyatam. This is what's being discussed in this verse. This particular verse of the Bhagavatam is the seed verse of this particular pastime. And then he exhibited how much he can be subdued by his devotees, his servants. In this way, he increased the pleasure of the Brajbasis by his childhood activities. So here we have, in this verse, we have the understanding of Ananda Kunde. And I'm reading these verses. I hope that devotees will take interest in looking them up and studying these verses, because these are the key verses that were selected by Sanatana Goswami to really explain this pastime. So again, this is 10, 11, 9. And then Srila Prabhupada says in his purport, that Krishna performed childhood activities to increase the pleasure of his devotees was another transcendental humor. He exhibited these pastimes not only to the inhabitants of Braj Bhumi, but also to others who were captivated by his external potency and opulence. Both the internal devotees, who were simply absorbed in love of Krishna, and the external devotees, who were captivated by his unlimited potency, were informed of Krishna's desire to be submissive to his servant. So then we go back. Of course, yesterday I also quoted one verse, which is 10:9:19. Says the same thing. Harina Britya Vashita. Britya means servant. Krishna is completely subdued by his servants, even though Swavasha, even though he is capable of maintaining unlimited universes. And Yasya Idam Seshvaram Vashe, and he maintains all the demigods and all the great personalities within the universe. He is under the control of his devotees. So, so this is Krishna. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But look at what he enjoys. He enjoys, just like I mentioned the other day, Raghupati Upadhyaya. He says about these pastimes, he says that Krishna, he encounters Lord Chaitanya, and so Lord Chaitanya says, tell me something about Krishna. So what does he say? He glorifies the residents of Vrindavan. The first thing he says is a famous verse that Srila Prabhupada quotes quite a bit. Shrutim apare shmitim ihtare bharatam anya bhajantu bhavabita. Those who are fearful of material existence, they will refer to the Shrutis, the Shastras, the Shmitis, the corollary Shastras, the Mahabharata. But he says, Raghupati says, in my case, ham iha nandam bande yasyalinde param brahma. In my case, I worship Nanda Maharaj, because Nanda Maharaj has the absolute truth crawling around in his courtyard. Otherwise, the absolute truth is completely under his control. And then he says, but kim prati katitam ishe patitam ko va patitum ayatu. That who is going to believe me when I say what I'm going to say right now? Who can possibly believe me? Of course, he knows that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will believe him, Rupa Goswami will believe him. But he's saying, in general, how could people ever understand this? Gopati tanaya kunje, gopa badhuti bitam brahma. That this Brahma, this Param Brahman, is running around on the banks of the Yamuna chasing the gopis in the bushes. Who is going to believe this aspect of the Supreme Personality of Godhead? When we see God, like we see the Western conception, some of them have no conception. They don't even do any artwork, no conception of God. The Christians have some conception. But the devotees of the Lord have a full conception. His eyes, his nose, his characteristics, his pastimes, what he does, what he likes, what he doesn't like, everything is there. We have such an opportunity, but we have to take advantage of that opportunity. So here he is, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Swagosham, proclaiming his own glories, or like Uttama Shloka, the most worthy of being glorified. This is the position of the Supreme. This position is being established here. Of course, the main part of this verse, Tadi, starts with the word, okay, Akyapayantam. He's revealing to who? Three classes of people. Tadiya Ishita Geshu. Those who have knowledge, Tadiya. Tadiya means servant, servant or paraphernalia. So Tadiya Ishita Geshu. Those who are servants of the Lord, but really only understand Ishita, his controlling feature, his majestic feature, his awesome feature. Of course, nowadays, awesome means the opposite, means something more intimate. But anyway, going to the original, in awe and reverence, people who are in the awe, Bhaktayar Jitatvam, he informs them that only those who are residents of Vrindavan or very intimate devotees, you should understand that you will never reach their platform if you're seeing within me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, if you're impressed by our opulence. Just like you go to a bank, almost all banks, they have like beautiful marble, and you don't want to go into a bank and see it's all run down. Then you'll think, how can I trust my money to these people? But if it's beautiful marble, and so to establish the obedience, Damani Sakshad Bhagavat Pranitam, as Yamaraj said to his followers, to establish this opulence, the opulence of the Supreme, the submission necessary. People who just hear about his Vrindavan pastimes and don't hear Bhagavad Gita or don't hear instructions about Krishna's greatness, then they will worship Krishna with sentimentality, which can lead to a sahaja type understanding of Krishna. And therefore his tattva, the reality, has to be explained. Then we can enter into this intimacy. So for those people, those devotees who understand this, then this is what they're going to understand. This is what they'll understand. So he's speaking to devotees, to the devotees who may not be pure, in the most intimately related. They're more external devotees. To scholars who are studying his majesty or his greatness from a more of an intellectual point of view, and for the jnanis, as jnanis and mayavadis, he's telling them, you can never understand me. For the scholars and people who are who have some knowledge of Krishna, but they don't have full knowledge. For those people, he's speaking. He's saying, this is I can only be conquered. Otherwise, come to the platform of devotional service. To the jnanis, come to the platform of devotional service. This is what Krishna is saying. And so this is the wonderful aspect. Now, somebody asked yesterday, why are these pastimes, these balya pastimes, so wonderful? Because of all the balya pastimes, this is the most wonderful. Well, why are the childhood pastimes so especially sweet? They're especially sweet because a child has innocence. Although sometimes Prabhupada said it's actually ignorance, but it appears to be innocence. Otherwise, it's ignorance because they're ignoring the real understanding of who they are. But it's innocence in the fact they don't understand what they're doing. They simply want to play. So the Lord, as it's described in Svetashvatara Upanishad, Tatasya karyam karanam chavijite, natat shamas chavika chadrishyate. Krishna has absolutely nothing to do. So in which pastime does he exhibit having, otherwise he doesn't even accept any duties, although he does kill Putana, Shakatasura, and Trinavarta at this age. He does, but he doesn't have to do it. It's not his duty, so to speak. Although later on in Bhagavad Gita, he says he does these things. But at this point in time, he's free. His innocence is exposed. Nobody can chastise him, even though he may do something that should be chastised. When Nanda Maharaj sees his lotus eyes, or when Yashoda Mai hears his crying, like in this case, immediately she feels pity. She threw away the stick. Now she said, I'm going to tie you up for 3 reasons. So you can't escape, one reason. Another reason is so that you will understand that what you did was not correct. And thirdly, you won't be able to play with your friends, because your friends will see that you're being punished and they will avoid you because they don't want to be punished. So this is to correct you, Krishna. I have to correct you. It's my duty, even though you are the source of religiosity. Just like in the beginning of Bhagavatam, it says that everything hinges on Krishna, and therefore now that Krishna is leaving, Krishna is sva dhammopagate dharmagena devi saha kalonashtan mishame sha puranarko dunoditaha. Now that Krishna has left with everything that he manifests, aham sarvasya prabhavo mata sarvam pravartate, everything material, everything spiritual is manifested by Krishna. And now Bhagavatam says all that is gone. What is our hope? The Bhagavatam, the holy name of Krishna, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Srila Prabhupada. We have so many sources of hope, but the Bhagavatam just mentions one, its own self. The Bhagavatam is the solution, the illumination of the Bhagavatam. So, because Krishna is present everywhere, then all of us will receive the blessings of the Bhagavatam if we understand properly. So this is a very, very important understanding, that he displays things he displays his majesty to those who are ignorant of him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He displays his opulence to those devotees who are attracted to opulence. There are some devotees who are attracted, and he shows his most intimate nature to those who are attracted to the lifestyle of Vrindavan. Taking care of the cows and the calves and living in this wonderful setting of Vrindavan. So, I wanted to make another point, that this very special quality of Krishna, of being worshipped by his devotees, is very, very important. How great the devotees are. So in the Bhagavad Gita, 9th chapter, text number 11, Avajaranti Mamudha, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada makes a reference to the Bhagavatam 3:29-21, which reads, I am present in every living entity as the super soul. If someone neglects or disregards that super soul everywhere and engages himself in worship of the deity in the temple, that is simply imitation. Otherwise, we should worship the deity. And of course, worship the deity in the temple. Prabhupada established so many temples, so many deities, but we should understand that worshiping of Vaishnava is even more important. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada says, in relation to that, within his purport to 9:11, Jiva Goswami, commenting on this verse, commenting on 3:29-21, says that Krishna, in his plenary expansion as Paramatma, is situated in the moving and non-moving entities as the Supersoul. So any neophyte devotee who simply gives his attention to the Archamurti, the form of the Supreme Lord in the temple, and does not respect, listen to this, other living entities, is uselessly worshiping the form of the Lord in the temple. Now, he's not even talking about Vaishnavas here. He's just talking about, as we say, Manadena, giving respect to everyone. There are three kinds of devotees of the Lord, and the neophyte is in the lowest stage. The neophyte devotee gives more attention to the deity in the temple than to other devotees. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur warns that this sort of mentality should be corrected. A devotee should see that because Krishna is present in everyone's heart as Paramatma, every body is the embodiment or the temple of the Supreme Lord. So as one offers respect to the temple of the Lord, he should similarly properly respect each and every body in which the Lord resides. And what to speak of the devotees of the Lord. So this is very, very important understanding. No. And so, going back to the verse itself, now, we've spoken about Ananda Kunde, we've spoken about Swagosham, meaning Krishna's village, Krishna's associates, or the embodiment of the glories, or that Krishna wants to glorify his devotees. He wants them to be seen. As the effulgence of Goloka Vrindavan or Gokula Vrindavan is Krishna himself. So now he states, as we just said, those who are interested, those devotees, especially devotees, who are interested in his more external or opulent aspects, let them know Bhakti Tattvam. He says, I am conquered by the devotee, but in this sense he means what kind of devotee? The devotees of Vrindavan. And Puna Prematas, so Kunti, those who are again and again to these devotees situated in Prema Bhakti, Tam Shatavritti Bande, I offer hundreds and hundreds and thousands of obeisances. It's not just one or two, but it's unlimited because they are serving Krishna with no interest. And as Krishna says, I will reciprocate with the devotees in the same degree that they surrender to me. So those who are completely surrendered, I've mentioned many times the example of Sudam. When Sudam, on two occasions, Sudam's devotion was noted first by Rukmini, who stopped the Lord. She grabbed the Lord's hand as he was taking the bits of broken rice and putting it in his mouth. She said, don't eat another grain. If you do, I don't have enough in this universe to compensate. Otherwise, I am Durga. I'm in charge of this material nature and distributing it according to the devotion or lack of devotion, holding back. But I see such pleasure in you that I won't be able to compensate. And then after Sudam left, Krishna, from within the heart, made him realize. He said, Krishna didn't give me anything. When he arrived at his old hut, it was a huge palace. He could realize that Krishna gave him everything. But Krishna was thinking, my devotee has defeated me. He brought me something that was beyond what he had, and I can only give him what I have because there's nothing beyond what I have. So this is the power, this is the potency, this is the position Sattaviti Vande. Therefore, I offer my humble obeisances again and again and again. Puna Prematas. In the mood of loving devotion. That's why I'm doing this. Out of affection, out of loving devotion. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna. So I want to speak about one more aspect of this particular pastime, which is at the very end. At the very end, he says that that the devotee, Satyavrata, now he's writing this. He doesn't write this like a mundane author. He's writing it out of realization. Realization means that the Lord is helping him from within the heart. And therefore, at this particular point, when he meditates in two different verses on the Vritya Vashata, or the Bhaktiyaiva Yashatam, the ability of his devotees to conquer him. And of course, this was also stated by Lord Brahma when he was offering his prayers. He said that that actually only a devotee can defeat me. And this was in his prayers. And at the end of his, because this prayer was also the first prayer accepted by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu from Ramananda Roy. At the end of the verse, he says, Ye prayaso jitutopya se traistrilokyam. He says that the Lord is conquered by these devotees, even though he is unconquerable in the three worlds. Otherwise, no one can conquer Krishna. But the devotee is conquering him, not with a sword, not with weapons, but conquering him with their loving devotional sentiments. And so this is what was being discussed here at the end of the explanation by Sri Sanatana Goswami, that hundreds and hundreds of times I bow down unto that personality of Godhead, and so this is the mood of Satyavrata Muni. This can never happen with someone who is absorbed in Aishwarya Bhav, or in the mood of opulence, Aishwarya Bhav or Ishvara Bhav. The Kshatriya has Ishvara Bhav, the sentiment of controlling, organizing, etc. But Krishna has Aishwarya Bhav. He has this opulent position, but even in his opulent position, what happens? He becomes Jagannath. He cannot pull himself away from Vrindavan. He becomes Jagannath. He begins to remember his pastimes in the lower Vrindavan, and those pastimes are so wonderful that he cannot go away. He cannot escape them. He cannot give them up in any way. He is totally under the control of his devotees, and therefore that control of the devotees is very powerful. One time Srila Prabhupada said, when I was young, all my friends, they would listen to me. They would only listen to me. I was the leader. Prabhupada said, actually, throughout my life, I have never been controlled except by Krishna. Because Krishna cannot be controlled except by Srimati Radharani. Krishna can be controlled. And therefore, a devotee is always situated in a humble position where the devotee can exhibit to the Lord that my only interest is to serve you, my dear Lord, and to serve your mission. So what is Krishna's mission? Yada yada hi dharma strugglane bhavati bharata, or as he declares later, Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chatuskritam. I come to bring devotees up to a higher platform of devotion, and I also come, incidentally to kill demons. But the real reason I kill demons is to give them my mercy. I don't kill demons like a Kshatriya kills demons out of some kind of anger, frustration, or I kill demons because that's the only way I can bless them. They refuse to take my blessings in the form of instruction, in the form of understanding, in the form of spiritual knowledge, and therefore I must give them this way. So this song is also reflecting that for these people. And of course, this will be dealt with in future verses. But with these people, I have to show them who I am. And then those who are actually devotees can understand what is my favorite way of being addressed. He doesn't expect them to address him in this way. Just like a lawyer would not tell his clients, you can call me daddy. No, he wouldn't say that, but his children can say that. He wants the clients to call him Mr. So-and-so or counselor, but not daddy. And also he wouldn't want his children to call him counselor. Come up, shake his hand, counselor, could you give me some advice? No, they will control him. But the clients cannot control him, well, maybe with money, but not by their sentiments. So these are some of the main points in this particular verse. I know today we should try to stop on time because it is Sunday feast, and coming up in a few minutes is the Artik. So I wanted to leave a little time for any questions or any comments. So I will stop here and see if there's any questions, comments, etc. No questions? Well, if there's no questions, I don't know if Mother Panchatattva has any announcements to make before the Artik. Otherwise, I can mention a couple more things.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Please.
So I was just wondering if you, do you have a question, a comment, or do you have some announcement?
Hare Krishna. So we were frozen for a while.
Yes, okay.
So
that's unusual in Trinidad. Usually doesn't get that cold.
Okay. So in the interest of time, Maharaj, as you rightly said, we have Artik in a few minutes. So
well, there is one question here. Maybe we can take this question very quickly and then
yes.
We'll stop.
Yes.
Okay, Hari Kirtan. Yeah, you have your hand raised. So please unmute if you have a question.
Thank you so much. Please accept my humble obeisances. All goes to Srila Prabhupada. Maharaj, I was reading one verse, this verse in the prayers of Queen Kunti, where she glorifies the pastime of Damodara. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, and of course your class was based a lot on this, he says that Kunti Devi was quite aware of the Lord's supreme position as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but Maria Yashoda was not. And therefore, Mother Yashoda's position was higher. So my question is, of course, Kunti Mata is also a great devotee. The Pandavas are great devotees. And usually we hear that this rasa of Vatsalya or Madhurya rasa is higher than the rest of rasas. Does that mean that a devotee in all of these other rasas are less than those devotees? I don't know if I've explained myself correctly.
Yeah, I understand. No, it has, as Srila Prabhupada said when he explains this particular phenomenon of, higher rasa, it doesn't mean that it's more, that it's any greater, because each devotee, just like your finger doesn't aspire to be the brain. We have a little finger, it has its function, and the finger is very well situated to perform that function, but cannot necessarily perform the function of the brain or the eye. So the eye and the brain, each one of them is valuable, is so valuable. Like if we cut our finger, we'll immediately go to the hospital if we have a bad cut in our finger or some inferior part of the body. It's not that we'll think, well, it's just a finger. I got 9 more, so what's the problem? And I have 10 on my feet. So what's the problem? No, we are intimately connected with every part of our body. So Krishna is intimately connected with every devotee, but some devotees perform the function of giving him this extra intimacy, like the young gopis, or Mother Yashoda gives him a special intimacy. So it's not that another devotee is thinking, well, wait a minute, I'm just a servant, or I'm a cow, I want to embrace Krishna like the gopis. No, there's no envy. Everyone is serving Krishna just to please Krishna. And the cows know that the best way I can please Krishna is to come up to him and dance and lick his transcendental body. That's the way I can please Krishna. And the gopis think the way we can please Krishna is to offer him these things and come to the calling of his flute. And the elderly gopis think we need to feed Krishna. And the cowherd men think we need to protect Krishna. So everyone is completely satisfied. But Prabhupada said, if we compare the different rasas, it means that Madhurya ras, because actually everything in Vrindavan is in Madhurya Prem, meaning that Madhurya ras dominates. And Madhurya ras is not just the Madhurya ras of the gopis, but the Madhura, or the sweetness of Vrindavan is permeated everywhere in Vrindavan. And everyone in Vrindavan experiences that sweetness in a very special way. It's not that just the gopis have sweetness and there's no sweetness. The cows, the birds, everyone is experiencing that, and also everyone is a servant of the Madhurya ras. Everyone ultimately knows that in their innermost heart that the relationship between the gopis and Krishna is something very special. Even though the cowherd boys will compete with that, they will compete with that particular meaning that they want Krishna to be with them all day long. But anyway, so we have to stop here, unfortunately. I hope that was sufficient, because we have in Trinidad, they have the Arctic now. Of course, if somebody wants to stay on for a few minutes, we can just let the tempo go off and then we can answer any questions. Any other questions?
Yes, Maharaj. So, as you rightly say, we have Arctic in a couple minutes. So I would like to take this opportunity to thank you for the 3-part series that we had. Tomorrow we have another speaker, Navina Nirada Prabhu, and then we have His Holiness Bhakti Sundar Maharaj and so on. But we're looking forward to having you again later on during this month of Kartik, because we would like to hear more on the Damodara Ashtaka. So we will keep in touch, and for the devotees, we will be hearing from Maharaj again during this month of Kartik. So I would like to thank you very much, Maharaj, and all the devotees who joined in for the 3 days. Thank you all so very much. It was a pleasure having all of you, and we look forward to seeing you all again tomorrow evening at 7 and for the rest of the month of Kartik. So, Maharaj, thank you, and we look forward to seeing you again. Hare Krishna.
Okay,
Hare
let's go. Okay. So, okay, so Taruna Radha, you have a question?
Hare Krishna, Gurudeva. Here is a question. You said that Krishna coming to defend his devotees and to kill the demons. But like you explained, he is killing demons to give them mercy. Mm-hmm. So actually Krishna treats everyone like if he is devotee or maybe future devotee. So should we treat everyone like the same way?
Well, that may not be pleasing to be killed by Krishna. No, just like we see when Keshi demon is killed by Krishna, it's not like he's feeling bliss, but he's being benefited. So it may not be pleasing to the devotee right away, but it will be ultimately beneficial. But his mercy he's always giving his mercy. Just like, and the reason for that is it shows us how that when Krishna chastises us, also it may not be pleasing, but we should always understand it is his mercy. So that's another reason why Krishna, what we can understand from Krishna's chastisement, or especially the demons, he has to chastise the demoniac tendency in our heart through different experiences that we have to go through. So, anyone else have a question while we're still connected? Yes. Yes. So no one else? Okay. So in that case, we can stop here and continue for some. There's also a Spanish class at 5 o'clock my time. So some of you may have gotten that invitation also. So thank you very much for your kind attention. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrindi ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi.
Hari 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 Bol. Thank you very much, Gurudev.
Hare Krishna.
Jai Gurudev.
Jai.